Now that I'm done with the top 10 best films of 2014, it's time to do the worst films of 2014. I'm sorry if this turned out late. I was supposed to put this out in New Year, but I just need to set my time for family and celebrate for a while and take a break for a while making videos. And now I'm back. It's my first video on the New Year 2015. School starts for us tomorrow. Let's start ranking up the video by labeling up my dishonorable mentions. That Awkward Moment, Earth to Echo, Planes, Fire and Rescue, Lucy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Giver, Dracula Untold, November Man, and Annabelle. Now let us start the video by naming off the top 10 worst films of 2014. Coming up on my number 10 spot is another predictable and dumb-witted horror movie. Coming up on my number 10 spot is the movie Ouija. Talk about a really appalling and predictable horror movie. Ouija is not only a horror movie that not only lasts long because of its dim-witted scares, it also contains one of the few minor things that makes a movie a pile of shit. Ouija is poorly directed, filled with sluggish and idiotic dialogue, and most of all, it has one of the most boring characters I've ever seen. And unfortunately, the cast did a very abysmal job because they absolutely don't know how to act. Coming up on my number 9 spot is a bad comedy coming from the king of comedy, Seth MacFarlane. Coming up on my number 9 spot is A Million Ways to Die in the West. I love Family Guy. I love Seth MacFarlane. He's a really laughable guy. When you make a western comedy filled with unintentionally unfunny jokes, like sexual jokes, and I completely understand that sexual jokes is what MacFarlane has been going through all his life, starting with his animations, including Family Guy, but it's like too much. And when you put too much of that in the movie, even if it's a rated R film, it kinda gets annoying at times. A Million Ways to Die in the West was one of the most painfully unfunny comedies of all time that definitely deserves to be on this list. Coming up at my number 8 spot is another painfully or unintentionally unfunny movie. Coming up on my number 8 spot is the movie Let's Be Cops. Let's Be Cops is certainly one of the most unfunniest movies of 2014. I mean, the jokes didn't really hit me the same way 22 Jump Street did for me. The jokes are just corny and so repetitive, like A Million Ways to Die in the West. And coming off the bat, the two protagonists that play the cops, they really have a really wrecked and a stupid chemistry together. I swear to God, it's one of the most appalling chemistries I've ever witnessed in movie history. First of all, they fought, and then they're friends again, and later on they fought, and they're friends again. This movie's all over the place. It's like on top of and that's how abysmal this movie is. I absolutely hated Let's Be Cops, and I'm really proud that this movie was on the list. Coming up on my number 7 spot is from the mastermind who ruined our childhood for 8 years. Coming up on my number 7 spot is Transformers Age of Extinction. Transformers Age of Extinction is not only the worst film Michael Bay has ever done since the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot came out, it is one of the most infuriating movies ever made. I mean, first of all, this movie is just butchered with so many things like racial jokes, terrible acting, and over-the-top, bloated, and absolutely repetitive action, just filled with explosions and not enough storytelling and development for the characters. Michael Bay basically ruined this franchise. There is a 5th entry into this series, and with Bay out of the picture, and the series is taken over by a new director, hopefully they'll get it right this time, because I'm just tired of seeing the same stupid shit all over and over again. If you were a fan of Transformers 4, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do to you. Coming up on my number 6 spot is another ridiculous horror movie. Coming up on number 6 spot is the movie Devil's Due. Devil's Due was absolutely terrible. This movie was just overall a really boring movie. It was so badly written, filled with daft dialogue and an overall dim-witted cast. I've never seen the cast this bad. I almost fell asleep during this movie because it wasn't really scary. Okay, I have to be honest, there were a few scares that made me jump out of my seat, but that is just it. Nothing else quite exciting and intensely packing. Just cliche jump scares. Jesus Christ, directors these days. Devil's Due was an absolutely boring, predictably unwise horror movie that definitely deserves to be on this list. Coming up on my number 5 spot is... I had enough of bloated action movies, man, but this one really got me into an angry manner. Coming up on my number 5 spot is The Expendables III. The Expendables movies are absolutely one of the worst series of action films, but this one really takes the cake. It was Stallone's idea to make the movie PG-13. And to be honest, that really infuriated me, because the Expendables movie had really intense action and a lot of blood gushed out, but the movies were still whenever people get shot or knife. But the third entry had to offer was just no blood at all. Whenever people get shot, there was a little bit of blood, but you easily missed it because this movie is PG-13. Also, this movie had one of the biggest action movie stars altogether in one movie, and the directors made them wasted like shit. It's like he doesn't care about his work. He doesn't care about the damn cast. He doesn't care how much goddamn pain this movie gets. What only matters to him is the goddamn money. Expendables 3 is absolutely one of the worst action movies I've seen in my entire life. Is it even worse than A Good Day to Die Hard? 90% guaranteed worse than A Good Day to Die Hard. Coming up on my number 4 spot is one of the most biggest piles of crap I have ever seen in my life. Coming up on my number 4 spot is The Legend of Hercules. There's nothing else much to say here. The Legend of Hercules was a big disappointment. It tried to be more like Gladiator and tried to rip off 300. I mean, stay original for God's sake. The sloppy editing and camera nearly blinded my goddamn eyes. The slow motion was also bad. The writing was bad. The acting was just... There's really nothing much to say to this film. All I can say is it's one of the worst movies ever made, and it deserved to be on this list. Coming up on my number 3 is sadly one of the last films Robin Williams has appeared in. He will surely be missed, but I couldn't take off The Angriest Man in Brooklyn on my number 3 list. This movie was just... it was terrible. The Angriest Man in Brooklyn is one of the most disastrous movies I have ever seen in my whole life. The jokes were funny. There were some dramatic elements about the movie that I kind of almost cried because Robin Williams passed away, unfortunately. But Jesus Christ, The Angriest Man in Brooklyn is mainly one of the worst movies I have ever seen. The script was just so appalling. The direction was just all over the place. It's one of the most atrociously directed movies I have ever seen in my entire life. Coming up on my number 2 spot is one of the most annoying action movies of this generation. Coming up on my number 2 spot is the movie Sabotage. Sabotage was a movie. This is the movie that is surely worse than A Good Day to Die Hard. This movie was just all over the place. It's senseless and dim-witted dialogue. One of the biggest piles of scripts ever to be put together on film. Just really bad acting coming from Arnold Schwarzenegger and everyone else involved. I don't even know why or how this movie got a cinematic release, because obviously it's already fitted to come out in a digital video release because Sabotage is that bad and it's low budget. Different shirt. Coming up on my number 1 is... Are you ready for it? Coming up on my number 1 spot is my arch nemesis of 2014. Coming up on my number 1 spot is the movie Transcendence. Transcendence is the worst movie of 2014. You saw this one coming because from that review of the movie itself, I really hated that movie. I recently changed that rating to 1.5 out of 5 stars because that 2 out of 5 stars really just isn't enough, because there really was no excuse whatsoever to give that film a rating that low. Transcendence is one of the worst paced movies I have ever seen. It is completely boring to the point where you want to take a nap. The script is also very messed up, some very atrocious dialogue, and boring. It's just a boring set piece. The acting in this movie was atrocious. Johnny Depp is one of my favorite actors of all time, but in this movie he was just butchered by the director. And speaking of the acting, the direction was also pretty messed up. I mean, the director is known for being Christopher Nolan's preferred cinematographer. I mean, this guy couldn't even direct a good movie. I'm sorry, man, but this movie is just a sack of balls. Transcendence is the worst movie of all time, and I'm truly glad that it made it up to the number 1 list, because Jesus, if one of you have seen the movie, you know how bad it is, right? Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I'm in a different kind of shirt. It is January 9th. Sorry if this video came out late. I was supposed to premiere or upload it before school. I'm Kid26. Thank you very much for watching my top 10 worst video, and I'll see you all next time. Subscribe. Peace. Peace.